I'm not gonna lie, I was dreading making this video. Watching this season for the first time was the point where I started to feel hopeless for the series. I thought season 4 was a bit of a dud, but I had hope for season 5. But I was disappointed to find out it didn't get any better. Hell, it got worse. This season is where a lot of people drop the show, and that makes me sad because I think after this season, the quality of the series increases. But this season made a lot of people quit due to the drop in quality. From having some of the worst episodes in the show, to most episodes being boring and uninspired, to it feeling like the writers hate the fans, it was a miserable time to be a Rick and Morty fan, and I get why interest in the series dwindled. But doing this retrospective series had me thinking. A lot of my opinions have changed, both positive and negative. Now that I know the series does get better with seasons 6 and 7, maybe I'll be less harsh on season 5, or maybe I'll be more harsh. Who knows? I surely don't. I always write these intros before I watch the season. I'm very interested to see my changing opinions on this season, so I'm going to ask a question. Is Rick and Morty season 5 that bad? Let's find out. One last thing, I just moved into a new apartment, so sorry if the audio quality is kind of weird. On to the first episode. Episode 1 is Mort Dinner, Rick Andre. This episode starts off with Morty carrying Rick out of a predicament. They eventually make it back to Earth, but their ship stops working. Morty, knowing he's gonna die soon, calls Jessica and says that he likes her. She reciprocates his feelings and wants to come over to his house that night to hang out. Morty immediately starts to try and fix the ship, which he accomplishes and lands safely in the ocean. Rick wakes up and is pissed because his arch nemesis, Mr. Nimbus, forbids Rick from going in the ocean. This is a pretty great start. Rick is pissed at Morty because now he has to have dinner with Mr. Nimbus and discuss a peace treaty. He even sends Summer to go get Mr. Nimbus's horn that gives him power because he doesn't trust Morty. This is one of my biggest problems with the episode. Rick's a dick for no reason. Morty saved both of their lives, even though we know Rick can just respawn. But Rick shows no appreciation. I mean, it's not Morty's fault that you never told him that you can't go in the ocean. That's on you, buddy. The worst part is that he's a dick, so later on in the episode, he can learn he's a dick and needs to change. My god, how many times are they going to do this plot? The last episode literally did the exact same thing. Do something different with his character. Anyways, Rick puts Mr. Nimbus's favorite wine in an alternate dimension where time goes way faster and gives Morty the job to retrieve the wine when it's aged. Jessica comes over and Morty and her are getting settled when Jessica asks Morty to get some wine. He goes to the dimension and meets a nice man named Hoovy who helps Morty carry the wine to his dimension. Okay, I know Morty's dumb, but even he should realize that Hoovy shouldn't step foot in his dimension for a second, since Hoovy's home dimension will go through a huge time skip when he gets back. Hoovy goes back and his son kills him for leaving him and his mother. Mr. Nimbus drinks all the wine and Morty is forced to get more. But when Morty goes back to the dimension, Hoovy's son tries to kill him. Morty leaves, but comes back and kicks the shit out of Hoovy's son. Then a good chunk of this episode is Morty going back to get wine, while this society forms hellbent on killing Morty. Jessica almost leaving, and Rick being an asshole. Eventually, the society gets the tech to travel to Morty's dimension, and Jessica stops the assassin they send and gets sucked into the dimension. Morty goes to save her, and they almost escape but are dragged back in. Rick comes to help after calling Mr. Nimbus stupid, but he can't save the day, which I'm glad they depowered him. Then Mr. Nimbus comes to save them. They escape, and Rick and Nimbus, now friends, have a nice conversation until Summer comes in with the horn, and Mr. Nimbus beats the shit out of Rick and has him arrested. Jessica also denies Morty because she thinks she's a time god, which I'm pretty sure never comes back, which is sad. There's also a subplot about Jerry and Beth being sex positive and wondering if they want to have a three-way with Mr. Nimbus. What the fuck is that plot? At least they aren't hating on each other, so that's an upside. This episode is surprisingly good. Now, there are some bad things. I don't like Mr. Nimbus. He just makes sex jokes that I don't find funny. I do like the bit of how he can control the police. It's stupid, but it worked on me. Like I said before, Rick being an asshole is annoying. I'm not saying he has to be a saint, but there's a perfect balance for his assholery. Is that even a word? I don't know. I created a word today, I guess. And this goes over the edge and becomes annoying. I really hate this line.
If Diane were alive today, what would she
Don't
think?
fucking establish canonical backstory with me, you red line.
This just feels like the writers hate canon, which is fine, but it also feels like they're making fun of the fans, which just kind of sucks. Even with all of this, I love the concept so much. This generational war against Morty, and all Morty wants is the wine, is so much fun. It's a great plotline, and I love how far it goes. I also love the designs of the technologically advanced society, especially the colors. Morty being more nihilistic actually works here because it feels like everything is going against him. This is a pretty good start to the season. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 24th spot below Lawnmower Dog, but above Never Ricking Morty. Episode 2 is Mortyplicity. Okay, Season 5, you're starting out strong. This episode starts off with the Smith family eating breakfast like normal. Then these squid aliens come in and kill them. This reminds me of the cold open and close encounters of the Rick kind, tricking us into thinking this is the Smith family we usually follow. But then the writers pull the rug out from underneath us, revealing that this isn't our Smith family. This is a concept I like a lot. An episode can be halfway done, and then it can reveal that the family we were watching in the episode wasn't the Smith family we usually follow. They haven't really done this before, but the potential is there. Anyways, we see another Smith family hunting this little creature who wants to be hunted. Then Rick gets a notification that a decoy family was killed. After the Space Beth debacle, Rick created decoys of the family, so if anything dangerous tries to kill them, they'll most likely kill the decoys. This is already a fantastic idea for an episode, but then another twist happens revealing that the decoys have also been making decoys, so we can never know who's a decoy and who's not. This is Season 5 stand-in for Interdimensional Cable with many gags and bits, and I think this episode is the best of those types of episodes just because of the concept. It's such a cool idea to have decoys going around killing decoys. It's also revealed later that the squids we saw at the beginning are also decoys of the Smith family. They don't leave it at just normal looking decoys either. Eventually some decoy Ricks get lazy and make less realistic decoys, which then those decoys make less realistic decoys, so we have so many different versions of the family. I like the decoy family that looks like straw, and that Rick goes around skinning decoys so he can make his family look normal. It's fucked up and legitimately terrifying. I also love the wooden decoys, who run a safe haven for decoys. Okay, scratch that. I really just love Wooden Jerry. He wants to live, and when their base gets attacked, he escapes, trapping everyone in there to die. Then in a post-credits scene, we see him living a long but terrible life. First he's made into a dam by beavers, then he's made into a mirror in the far future and burned. Finally, he's made into a cross where he says they made Christianity again, sacrificing this new Jesus. That's actually a hilarious payoff. Probably my favorite Rick and Morty post-credit scene. The episode ends with a huge decoy war. Then when it seems like the real Smith family is discovered, they are killed by the hunter guy from the beginning of the episode because they never hunted him. That's such a fantastic ending. Hilariously stupid. Then we see the supposedly real Smith family with Space Beth, when Rick gets a notification that a decoy family got killed. I'm surprised this season started off with a good episode, then to follow it up, a great episode. Like I said, the concept is amazing, and they utilize it brilliantly. This episode is one of the funniest in the entire series, which is saying a lot. My main problem with later seasons is that they're not as funny as the earlier ones, but this episode made me laugh out loud on numerous occasions. I know this is a classic thing YouTubers making a video about Rick and Morty say, but this feels like a Season 2 episode, minus the Space Beth stuff. I'm not saying it's a classic Rick and Morty adventure, because I hate that saying. It just feels like it would fit in with Season 2's catalog of episodes. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 12th spot, below M. Night Shyamalan Aliens, but above Morty Night Run. If you're enjoying the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps support the channel. If you have any ideas of shows that I should cover, go ahead and put suggestions down in the comments. My Letterboxd and Twitter will be in the description if you want to go follow them. One last thing, if you want to see future videos of mine a day early, you can become a channel member. Thank you for the support, and back to the video. Episode 3 is a Rick Convenient Mort. This episode starts with Rick and Morty getting these t-shirts. You know the most annoying people ever have this as a regular part of their wardrobe. Then this rat guy comes and creates Acid Rain, and we're introduced to Planet Tina, a superhero who wants to save the Earth from anti-environmentalism. She's voiced by Alison Brie, which made me like her right away. Alison Brie is an underrated actress. Any role she plays, she's amazing at it. Planet Tina is a parody of Captain Planet, but I've never seen Captain Planet, so I don't know if it's a good parody or not. Morty goes out with her, leaving Rick behind. Then we're introduced to the 4 kids who spawned Planet Tina in with rings, but they're adults now since they've been doing it for years. Planet Tina and Morty are now dating, and after a disaster at a convention, where the kids spawn in Planet Tina with Morty, Morty is trapped in a room with the guy that wields the fire ring. They're planning on selling Planet Tina, so Morty kills the guy with the fire ring, then kills the rest of the kids so Planet Tina could be free and they could be happy together. Morty brings Planet Tina home, where Beth says Morty is too young to have a relationship with someone who's this old. That's fair. Morty tries to explain it away with her being an amalgamation of elements or something like that, but that's stupid. Then Beth and Morty argue.
Nobody in this family thinks I can say or do anything right. I've been all over the universe, met hundreds of people, and Planet Tina's the only one I've ever met that makes me feel like I belong, and you just kicked her out of our house!
Morty.
This is such a realistic argument, and it's a great moment. Morty might be more mature than the average 14-year-old because of all the shit he's been through, but the writers perfectly show he's still young, with Morty saying Planet Tina's the only one who understands him. This is a fantastic showing of Morty's character. He wants to act older than he really is. He never got a normal childhood, and he's always hanging out with Rick, so you know know he's probably not the most emotionally mature person out there. This is a fantastic scene. But then it's undermined with a montage immediately after showing that Planetina will do anything to save the Earth. She'll even murder innocent people.
It was perfect, but no, you just had to blow it up.
This comes out of left field, and it feels like the writers wrote themselves into a corner, since they can't have Planetina and Morty stay together by the end. But what if they could? I know the writers don't like serialization, but it would have been neat showing the cracks forming in their relationship throughout the season, then having them break up. I know they tried something similar with the Beth and Jerry divorce plotline in season 3, and that wasn't the best, but they could try again. It didn't have to be anything big either, just a throwaway line every now and then. Then in this season's penultimate episode, they could have them break up, while also having Rick leave Morty, which would add further sorrow to Morty. Then it would make a lot more sense why he wants to get back together with Rick, since he has no one. That would be interesting, but no, they have to make her evil and get her out of the show right away. I do like the scene where Morty cries on Beth after the breakup. It's a sweet moment. Honestly, this episode made me like Beth a lot more. She's being a good parent forbidding this relationship, since Planetina is old, no matter how much Morty tries to explain why it's okay. There's also this exchange.
I'll get the wine.
Thank you.
This happens after both Summer and Morty leave to do shit Jerry and Beth don't want them to do. If this was season 1, Jerry would have said something like, "Look how you've driven our kids away from us." Then Beth would say something like, "You think this is my fault?" My god, I'm terrible at impressions. Please forgive me. Then they would argue. But this simple gesture from Jerry shows their growth, with Jerry supporting Beth by getting wine. Even though he's supporting her alcoholism, it's the gesture that counts. Then there's the side plot where Rick and Summer go on a party crawl, with 3 planets that are going to get destroyed, and vowing not to get attached to anyone. Then Rick does with a woman named Daphne. Summer's obviously pissed, and eventually stops the apocalypse on the 3rd planet to prove that Daphne will move on right away, which she does. Then Rick apologizes. I'm very mixed on this episode. I love the main plot until they make Planetina evil. I'm also getting a bit sick of Morty's love interest stories, especially because they did it perfectly in the Vat of Acid episode. And you know when Morty gets with a girl, it's never going to stick. But I'm pretty sure there isn't another Morty love story after this. I could be wrong, but I guess we'll see. All the songs they use in this episode are great, especially Flowers by Mark Mallman and Ryan Elder. The B plot sucks. Sorry. It's just unfunny sex jokes and an incest joke. I don't find Daphne interesting. Her leaving was so predictable. This episode is hard to rank because there are some amazing parts, but also some awful parts, and a lot of missed potential. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 31st spot, below Something Ricked This Way Comes, but above Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die Repeat. Episode 4 is Rick Dependent Spray. No. I'm not watching this one. Fine, I'll talk about it. This is known as the worst episode of Rick and Morty by almost everyone in the fan base, including me, and that opinion hasn't changed. This episode is fundamentally flawed down to the idea. The setup is Morty finds a horse pleasure machine at Beth's horse surgeon job. They hardly ever bring up Beth's job anymore, which sucks, but they had to bring it back for this episode. Morty uses the machine. Rick later grabs the vat of Morty's splooge thinking it's horse juice. He plans to make a bioweapon to destroy the Chuds, who are underground horse cannibals who aren't actually cannibals because they eat people, not horses. Do the writers not know what cannibalism is? It's eating something of the same species. And why? Like, what's the point of the Chuds that apparently Rick and Morty have a lot of backstory with just showing up? It's random and stupid in the bad way. I know they come back later in the plot, but it's just to pad out the runtime. And they're stupid and I hate them, so I don't like that they pad out the runtime. They didn't need to help in the final battle. Sorry, I'm a Chud hater. Since it's not horse juice, the machine creates giant killer sperm. Okay. If you think this plot sounds fun, then I respect your opinion. But you need to be put in a mental institution. It's not only a disgusting concept, especially when you realize Morty is 14, but it also sets up a liar reveal plotline where Morty lies about it not being his splooge. This is one of the worst tropes in media, and adding that onto the sperm plot creates a truly terrible premise. That's not even all the bad stuff though. The president calls upon Rick and Morty to stop this mess, and they accept. Why is the president always in mediocre or downright bad episodes? He's a hilarious character, but they just keep putting him in these duds. There's also this weird subplot where now everyone is sexist and won't listen to Summer and Beth's ideas. This comes out of left field, and all it's saying is women not being treated equally is bad. No shit, I don't need the Rick and Morty sperm episode to tell me that. There's so many lines that go like, let the men handle this. Then they do something incompetent and it's not funny or subversive, it's lazy. Anyways, Rick and Morty go to the Grand Canyon to try and kill the sperm. I wonder why the sperm's going to the Grand Canyon. Vagina. What the fuck? This feels like it was written by a 4th grader, my god. Their plane crashes and Morty makes a new sperm friend named Sticky. You can tell he's good because he has an eye. Then Rick, Morty, and the samurai guy named Blazin, who is supposed to be a cool guy, starts to place explosives. The writers fail at making Blazin look cool with a bunch of lame cliches. Then the funny happens and it turns out he's actually lame. Look, he's wearing women's underwear. Isn't that hilarious?
I'm gonna kill myself!
That's a joke, guys, okay? Rick and Morty get captured by the sperm queen. She wants to produce more white knights for an army, so she straps Morty to the machine to produce more. Stop, please, I don't want to see this. To give this episode some credit, the joke where Rick says he'll do something, then makes himself fall over to get out of Morty's eyesight was somewhat funny. Sticky comes back and saves the duo. They're about to blow up the Grand Canyon when all the sperm starts to head to Las Vegas. For what, you ask? It's because they got an egg from Summer and enlarged it to lure in the sperm and kill them. What the actual fuck? They had to go back to their tried and true formula of incest. Rick and Morty get captured by the Chuds. Holy shit, I don't care. Rick impregnated the princess and they're freed. Then a battle at Las Vegas occurs, with them trying to launch the egg into space so no incest baby happens. I do like the concept of a Las Vegas battle with a bunch of performers defending the egg. If only they were not fighting sperm, it would have been actually fun. They fight and the Chuds come to help. Then Sticky defeats the queen, but goes into the egg right when it gets launched into space. Yep, that's right. It was made. The post-credit scene shows it. What the fuck is this episode? Why did the writers make it? Who thought this was a good idea? I'll tell you who. Dan fucking Harmon. After episodes, we get a little insight from the creators, which I usually skip. But for this episode, I just wanted to hear what they had to say.
I think it turned out, disgusting and tasteless.
Then why did you make it? It seems like the only person who thought it was a good idea was Dan Harmon, which no wonder why it ends with a giant incest baby. Dan, I know you're a talented writer. Community is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I love Rick and Morty, but you need to think sometimes. During the long process of making this episode, did you ever think once, maybe I shouldn't make this episode? The sound design is gross. I only found 2 jokes slightly amusing. The one before about Rick falling over and this.
I have a simple solution. See you all in hell!
I don't see how that's going to help.
That one is mostly because of the line delivery. It's gold. To put in perspective how much I hate this episode, I would rather in season 8 have 5 episodes that are the same quality as the dragon sex episode than another episode this atrocious. So this is 5 times worse than that episode. If you've seen my season 4 video, you know I despise that episode. This episode takes everything I hate about Rick and Morty. Terrible sex jokes, incest, terribly written characters, a plot that has no cohesion and is just random shit. It makes it into something truly awful. The worst part of this is, in my opinion, season 5 was on a winning streak. Sure, 2 of the episodes weren't that good, but from what I expected, I was ecstatic. This ruins it. Fuck man, the more I write about this episode, the more pissed I get. It's as bad as everyone says, and guess what? It's going in last place, and will stay there forever. I legitimately don't think the writers could create a worse episode than this, and if they do, I'm dropping Rick and Morty, and that's a promise. Episode 5 is a Morty can Grickfeedy. This episode starts off with Jerry and Rick supposedly having a guys' night. I've said that I really like Jerry and Rick's relationship in the later seasons. While this episode doesn't have the greatest display of their chemistry, it does end with Jerry realizing that Rick does somewhat like him. They go out for karaoke with these hell demons that have pretty cool designs. Apparently Rick made a deal with them because he gave them faulty skin hooks, which actually comes back later, which is neat. They love pain, so being around Jerry, the cringe lord, gives them what they desire. I love Jerry singing Oh Yeah by Yellow.
Oh yeah.
It's hilarious. Eventually Beth shows up to guys' night and figures out what's happening and is pissed at first, but then she goes along with it, which I hate. I get Rick doing this, but Beth telling stories about Jerry in embarrassing situations is really mean for her to do. This feels like something in season 1 Beth would do. Eventually the Hell Demons start a riot because Jerry finds out their plan and gets aggressive. They take Jerry with them back to Hell. Beth and Rick follow. They find Jerry, then the leader of Hell reveals that they also need Rick for their plan. Because Rick cringing at Jerry's jokes and Rick thinking he's so much cooler than Jerry is what gives them pleasure. I love this twist. It knocks Rick down a couple pegs. The demons hold Rick and Beth by skin hooks, but they break because of Rick's line earlier about faulty skin hooks, which is cool, but they could just stop T-posing and get down. It didn't pierce them. These demons can't be hurt since when they are in pain, they love it. So this depowers Rick. I always thought this season was the one where Rick is super overpowered, but he's been knocked down so many times this season, which is great. Rick creates a gun that can kill the demons. Now you might think I'm pissed because he just created created a gun that can do exactly what he wants, like in the dragon episode. But in order to make the gun work, Rick has to apologize to Jerry and say that he likes him, which is a great character moment. They actually weave this gun into the story, instead of it just being there so Rick can look cool. I quite like its implementation. They kill the leader of the Hell Demons and leave. Then Rick immediately says next time he'll just replace Jerry. But Jerry's not fazed because he knows Rick likes him. The other plot follows Summer and Morty having Bruce Chut back over. He's a new cool kid at school. To impress him, they take the ship out into space and do wacky shit like killing mailbox people. Psychos. But then the ship blackmails them and forces them to do what she wants. This leads them to a Transformers world where she wants to lose her virginity. Chutback suggests to dress up like one of the Transformers, which she is almost immediately found out to be an imposter, and kills all of them. Summer, Morty, and Chutback are sent to jail after escaping, and the ship saves them. They go home and Rick never finds out about their joyride. Now I know it sounded like I praised the first plot a lot, but it was just fine. Nothing of note happened except for a couple good character moments. The second plot sucks. I really didn't care. Especially since you know it will end with Summer and Morty realizing Chutback is not as cool as he seems, and yada yada yada. I do like this line. Wait, no, I don't. I take that back. I hate this line.
Also, I just watched Jurassic Park on cable. So good. Seriously, though. Touch my shit and I'll freeze your dick in amber.
Like, what's the joke? Oh, I watched Jurassic Park, so I'm gonna turn your dick to amber. This is the type of reference humor I'm talking about in the later seasons that I don't like. Just someone saying a movie title and being like, yeah, I know that property. It's lazy and unfunny. I'm struggling to talk about this episode. There's really nothing of substance. I was bored most of the time. There were a couple good jokes, but almost every episode has a good joke or two, so there's nothing special about this one. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 40th spot, below Child Rick and Mort, but above Rattlestar Rick Lactica. Episode 6 is Rick and Morty's Thanksplosion Spectacular. Oh god, not another President episode. I love you, man, but your episodes don't have the best track record. This episode starts off with Rick trying to heist the Declaration of Independence, but Morty accidentally destroys it and the Statue of Liberty, which releases a big robot. The president is once again pissed at Rick. So Rick plans to turn himself into a turkey and get pardoned by the president since it's Thanksgiving. But Rick's done this so many times that the president is prepared and turns soldiers into turkeys to find them. The concept is a huge make or break for this episode. I've heard people say it's stupid so they don't like the episode, and I've heard other people say they love how stupid it is. So what side am I on? I think this concept is stupid as hell, but fucking hilarious. Like, come on. This is the type of ridiculous shit I love in Rick and Morty. I also love that it's a Thanksgiving episode, since the show hasn't had one yet. Thanksgiving episodes are some of my favorites in any show, so I am pretty biased. The song they made when they were turning the soldiers into turkeys is great. It's so stupid, but there's nothing that brings me more joy than making fun of rednecks. It feels like this episode was made for me. Anyways, Rick and Morty sneak into the pen where the pardoned turkey is chosen. But oh no, the president turns himself into a turkey and immediately finds Rick and Morty. While Rick and the president fight, the pill that tracks who the president is gets knocked out of his stomach and another turkey swallows it. This causes that turkey to be turned into a weird looking turkey president. Rick, Morty, and the president then are thrown into an underground area where the real FDR has been turned into a spider and feeds on the rest of the turkeys. It's so stupid, I love it. Rick and Morty's turkey effect wears off and they kill FDR. They make their way to a Congress meeting, where the new president ups Congress's pay, so they all support him now. Then the trio gets attacked and escapes back to the Smith house. I love how Rick's gadgets don't work during the escape scene, because turkey feathers got stuck in them, and the president has to get them out of the mess. I'm loving the depowering of Rick this season. The writers must have realized that they made him overpowered last season and are trying to make up for that. Rick and the president are arguing back at the Smith residence, and then the president insults Morty, which Beth hears and comes to the rescue. She tells them to stop it, come to the table, and eat the Thanksgiving meal Jerry prepared. Damn, Beth is actually based in this scene. She's slowly winning me over. Slowly. The family and the president have dinner, and this is my favorite scene in the episode.
And pass the potatoes. Thank you.
That's such a perfect line delivery. I also love how the president makes fun of Jerry, and Rick laughs, which makes them bond. Then it's shown on the news that the turkey president is making a super turkey army to take over America. Rick, Morty, and the president go underneath the Lincoln Memorial, where it's revealed that turkeys used to run America, and these two tribes that have been hibernating for hundreds of years love to kill turkeys. This is where the episode loses me. There's a certain amount of stupid I can handle, and this has surpassed the limits. The turkey president launches the penis building. Why the fuck did I write that? Did I forget what the Washington Washington Monument was called? The turkey president launches the Washington Monument into space to turn all of America's turkeys into super soldiers. Rick and Morty go to stop the laser, and Morty accidentally destroys the Washington Monument. The president and the turkey president have an epic fist-to-fist battle. I like when the turkey president is almost dead, he takes out his wishbone and wishes to explode. That's funny. I also like the joke where the president's life is flashing before his eyes, and half of it is the announcement of a new PlayStation. Rick is pardoned, and the episode ends. So this episode is mostly good. It's stupid as hell, but mostly works. This episode is probably the second funniest in the season, which is mostly due to Rick and the president's dynamic, and I think this is the best it's ever been. I would say it's an enemies to lovers arc, wouldn't you? Even though the ending does knock this episode down a few spots, I would say this is the second best president episode. Yeah, it's not even close to Get Swifty. Let's hope we keep this upward trend of good president episodes after this. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 23rd spot, below Rick's D-Minutes, but above the Whirly Durly Conspiracy. Okay, Season 5, you're coming back. What's the next episode? Oh god. Episode 7 is Gotron Jerry Sis, Rick Vangelion. This episode starts off with Summer, Morty, and Rick going to Boob World. I wish they stuck with that plot. Rick finds a Gotron ferret, a big robot that if you combine all 5 of them, you will make a bigger robot. This episode is a parody of the Voltron anime, obviously. But the thing is, I'm not a big fan of Voltron. That's not an inherent problem. I'm not a fan of the Purge movies, but I love Look Who's Purging Now. The big problem with this episode is that it's boring as shit. I laughed once, and it was just a nose exhale. Rick gets the family together to fight a big space monster with the 5 Gotron ferrets he found. At first, the family is loving it and loving working together, which is nice to see. Then Rick gets more obsessive and wants to invite 4 other Ricks to get their Gotrons and make a Go-Gotron. This is where we get the other parody, with all the Ricks being mob movie character archetypes. And guess what? I'm not the biggest fan of mob movies either, so none of the jokes really landed. Then there's a montage of them combining Gotrons. During the episode, Summer is a huge asshole to Morty, and I think they go too far with it. I do get what they were going for, and I like a scene way later down the line, but Morty didn't do anything to deserve this, other than be a bit rude to her at the beginning. Morty gets kidnapped by the original owners of the Gotrons, and my god, this might be the worst parody of anime characters out there. I'm new to the whole anime thing, but I can think of so many funnier bits that they could do than just having their faces look weird and them doing random noises. Morty denies their offer of taking the family down, which is a good character moment, since he just got demoted to security, not even getting a Gotron anymore. It shows that he's loyal to his family and won't just backstab them, unlike another character this episode. Morty goes to the family and they all shit on him since Hothead Rick destroyed their party. Morty is Sisyphus, but instead of rolling a rock, he has to deal with something way worse. The endless cycle of the terrible Smith family. Morty's fired and eventually Beth and Jerry are fired too, which they both hate Summer for because she's the one who fired them. Then Summer gets replaced with one of the anime girls. Then we find out why she was so mean throughout the episode. She says that Rick has Morty and Beth has Jerry, so she felt left out. Now that's actually a great moment for her character. It's true that she's lonely, especially since she broke up with her boyfriend in a Rick Convenient more earlier this season. Then they fuck it up by bringing up the giant incest baby. Summer has been visiting it and mothering it, and why the fuck did they have to bring this plotline back out of all the plotlines? Like seriously, the writers apparently hate serialization, but when it comes to the fucking incest baby, yeah. Why not? It's not that funny of a concept to have a giant incest baby. Am I crazy?
I am not crazy.
The family goes to save Rick because the anime people are going to kill him after forming the Go-Go-Go-Gotron, and the family uses the incest baby in the rescue. Summer gave the incest baby the name Naruto. I mean, this is what an average Naruto fan looks like. Hashtag One Piece gang for life! I was told I should take that joke back, if I don't want death threats sent to me, so I apologize. They save Rick with Naruto and the episode ends. Yeah, this episode sucks. It's not as bad on a rewatch. I would have said this one is worse than the dragon episode, but I've come to my senses. It's better than that episode by a tiny bit. Not much to say about this episode that I haven't already said. The family are assholes and not in a funny way. The anime references are cringe. It's boring, and it's not a very funny episode. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 44th spot, below the ABCs of Beth, but above Vindicators 3, The Return of World Ender. Episode 8 is Returnal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort. This episode starts off with the Smith family heading for a cruise and Rick stays behind.
But as soon as you guys are gone, the potential for a new Pickle Rick starts skyrocketing. Peace.
Oh god, please no. Luckily, it doesn't turn into a Pickle Rick sequel, and instead, Rick takes out Bird Person, which in last season's finale, we saw Rick had saved him, and put him in the wall of his garage.
He's in the walls.
He's in the goddamn wall!
Rick built back his old body, even though it's looking rough, and tries to revive him. He's not waking up, so Rick decides to go into his mind and try and find him. I love episodes in TV shows where characters go into someone's brain, like the Gravity Falls episode Dreamscapers. Rick goes into Birdperson's mind, and we see where he and Birdperson first met at a festival. Rick travels through his memories, like Rick and Birdperson fighting other Ricks who are saying that this won't bring her back. This is great foreshadowing for the eventual reveal of Rick's real backstory in the finale. Rick ends up in a memory where we see his old freedom fighting team. One thing I love about this episode is that it's showing us some of Rick's backstory in a very interesting way, with it not revealing everything. Very cool. A younger version of Rick starts to follow Rick on his journey to find Birdperson.
Just a grumpy Scottish ogre, and they made 4 of them? 5 by now, probably.
If this was The Simpsons, there would be hundreds of shorts about how they predicted Shrek 5, even though it's not that hard of a thing to predict. Rick finds Birdperson, but Birdperson doesn't want to be saved. Birdperson starts to blow up his brain, and Rick grabs Memory Rick, who is looking into a room with a bird baby. Due to his mind collapsing, Rick and Memory Rick have to go through a memory of Blood Ridge, a battle against the Galactic Federation and Rick's gang. Rick has been avoiding the memory, and it seems like things are gonna go poorly, but they don't. They win. The song that plays during this sequence is straight fire. It's like an epic rendition of the opening theme, and it's fantastic. Then we find out why Rick hates this battle. He tells Birdperson that they can go anywhere with his portal gun, and that this doesn't matter. Which is a really bad thing to say to someone who just won a very important battle of a war they've been fighting for so long. This leaves them in a weird place. This scene is fantastic, from the music to the character interactions, hell, even the choreography. I also like how Rick says he respects Birdperson. He never says that to anyone. They find Birdperson with a memory of Tammy watching the sunset, and Rick tries to convince him to come back.
I died at my wedding, Rick.
This is a great character moment. We didn't get to see much of Birdperson before this, but from what little we did see of him, you could tell he was deeply in love with Tammy. So it would make sense for him to want to die. After his wife betrayed him, almost killed him, and made him into a cyborg Frankenstein. Eventually he gains back his will to live when Rick tells him he has a kid, and they start to escape. I really like the escape scene. They need to reach a place to leave, but Birdperson's brain is so fucked, so Rick has to start erasing his memories so they can travel to them, to try and get back to the festival where they first met. They make it out, but Birdperson isn't as grateful as Rick hopes he would be. He's a bit conflicted because Rick waited for the last second to tell him about his secret child. Rick does this because he thought Birdperson would have less time to hang out. They end off not on bad terms, but not on good terms either.
I will see you when I see you.
Great way to end this episode. I like how this moment calls back to earlier in the episode at the Battle of Blood Ridge, where the duo were left in a similar position. It shows that Rick has never really changed. When I first watched this episode, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but on the rewatch, I liked it quite a bit. This is a heavily character-driven story, which we don't get a lot of in the series, and they take it completely seriously, which is nice to see. I do have a problem with this episode though, but it's not a huge problem. This episode isn't that funny. This is a big problem with season 5 as a whole, but the story and the character moments are so good in this episode that I didn't really care. Also, it's not completely unfunny. I think Rick's garage AI planning on a way to survive if Rick dies is hilarious. She manipulates Jean, their neighbor, into getting her batteries. This episode leaves Rick off in a weird spot that makes the decision he makes next episode understandable. We'll get there soon though. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 17th spot, below Look Who's Purging Now, but above Risky Business. Episode 9 is for Getting Sarah Rick Mortshaw. This episode starts with Morty going through different dimensions to fix Rick's fuck-ups. This is a great start, showing Rick isn't the most considerate. I just wish Morty would bring this up later in the episode. Once Morty gets home, it's basically dropped. Morty uses Mountain Dew to fill back up the portal gun since Rick marked it, but he accidentally gets some fluid on his hand, causing a portal to open, then trash starts spilling out of it. It's revealed that the other side of the portal is connected to a guy named Nick's thigh. We're told that one night he went out drinking with Rick and came back to the house and accidentally spilt some fluid on his thigh. We later find out he's in a mental institution, which they would not allow him to have that much trash in his cell. Man, the writers really fucked up with this one. Rick comes to the garage and sees the garbage and is pissed. He then says he can replace Morty. This time Morty calls his bluff and says he won't. I love them bringing this into a plotline. Rick always says he will replace Morty, so we finally see what he does when he actually does replace Morty. He created a wheel full of options of things to replace Morty with, and it ends up on 2 crows. Damn, I wish it landed on half of Paul Giamatti. That would have been a great plot. Morty runs off to try and find Nick while Rick's training his crows. Morty finds Nick at a mental institution. Morty breaks him out in a really cool action scene. Like I said in the last video, I love portals being used in battle, and this shows the potential of portals being used as a weapon well. They go to trash Rick's place and find the prototype portal gun so they can go on adventures, but they need to get portal fluid, so they go to Rick's dealer. Rick's supplier won't give them any, so Nick kills them and Morty leaves. 2 episodes this season uses this trope where Morty makes a new friend, but they're actually evil. This episode works better than Planetina's episode though, because at the beginning, Nick is in a mental institution. It would make sense for him not to be trusted. Morty calls Rick and tells him everything and apologizes, and Rick does too. Then Nick finds Morty and attacks him. Morty cuts off his own hand and puts it into Nick's portal, which makes him cave into himself. Metal as fuck. I'll talk about the ending after Rick's plot. Rick trains 2 crows but eventually dumps them on a planet because they are empathetic. But someone on the planet tractor beams Rick. The species that inhabits this planet are advanced crows, and they show Rick how to use empathy. They go back to Earth where Rick's garage is trashed and they find the wheel. The crows are not happy about what Rick's comparing 2 crows to. They take Rick's 2 crows and start a crow revolution on Earth. Rick goes to get the crows back, then gets captured, and that's when Morty calls him. I like how the crows let him answer because they are shown to be empathetic throughout the episode. Then Rick's 2 crows touch a crystal that turns them huge. Then they help Rick and blow up the crystal, reverting the effect. Then we get the final scene where Rick sees Morty handless and goes to help him. Morty is hoping to quote unquote get back together, but Rick has grown and realized that their partnership was abusive. Rick even gives Morty the portal gun to show that he's changed. Then Rick flies off with the crows while Morty cries. The song that's playing, Borrowed Time, is a banger by the way. Okay, so this episode is good, but I have a couple problems with it. My main one is Rick learns the same fucking lesson again, not to be a dick. How many times are they gonna do this before he actually changes? After this though, I do remember him changing and being less of a dick, so I hope this is the last time he learns this lesson. Also, he learns empathy from crows, which is fine, until you realize last season's opener has him learning empathy from wasps. So this crow plotline just feels like a rehash. Like I said before, Nick turning evil is better than Planetina, but this also feels like a rehash. The plotline about them is good. I just wish either this episode or the Planetina episode chose a different way to end their relationship with Morty. Also, one last complaint. It feels like the creators hate canon stuff and just want to do episodic shit, which would be fine. But then why the hell are you doing so much canon shit this season? Bird person, this, fuck even Naruto. I'll rant about this more in the next episode, trust me. But if the creators don't like canon, then just don't do it. I know that's a bit unfair because the fans would be pissed if they stopped writing canon, and the series would feel stagnant. But also if they keep writing stuff making fun of canon and fans wanting it, it just makes it feel like they hate their fans. I mean, I would too. We're embarrassing.
I don't give a
Sorry for complaining so much, this episode is good. Both of the plot lines are good, and I really like the ending. In terms of the ranking, this episode is going in the 22nd spot, below the pilot, but above Star Mort Return of the Jerry. And finally, episode 10 is Rick Mirai Jack. We're once again at the end of another season of Rick and Morty. This episode starts where the last one left off, with Rick and the crows going on adventures. Morty shows up and asks Rick to come back, but Rick says no. Then an anime opening happens, which is a way better parody than anything in the Gotron episode. Since we're talking about anime, and I know you all are gonna ask this, I haven't seen the Rick and Morty anime, but if you want me to cover it, I might. We jump forward in time, with Morty showing up again, but now he's 40. Rick still says he's not coming back. Then the crows cheat on him with his arch nemesis, so Rick returns to the Smiths. Rick finds out it actually hasn't been that long, with everyone being the same. Morty aged himself up to try and guilt trip Rick. Rick doesn't mind, and they go to the Citadel to de-age Morty. I mean, Rick should have the technology to do it, and I feel like he wouldn't want to go back to the Citadel. But who cares, that's just a nitpick. I love seeing the Citadel again, but now it's rebuilt under evil Morty. Morty's de-aged, then there's a commotion outside. There's a mutated Morty asking for freedom and he's shot. Then Rick and Morty are invited to have dinner with President Morty, or as we know him, Evil Morty. Now this right here is the worst part of the episode.
The Citadel runs on canon, but the second he reveals he's evil, we're gone.
Let me put this into the perspective of a Rick and Morty fan who watched this when it first aired. You waited for 2 disappointing seasons to see Evil Morty again and see what his plan is. You're also excited to see how Rick will react. Then you see those scenes. Why do they have to downplay the reveal like this? It feels so lame. You didn't even need Rick to freak out when President Morty reveals himself as evil. Just have him say, "Oh darn" or something. But no, the writers hate canon, so they have to add that into the story to undermine the impact of the next scene, where Rick and Morty are eating dinner with President Morty. He reveals he's evil and Rick says told you so. But at least we see Rick being surprised that he was evil Rick's Morty. Evil Morty needed Rick's brain scanned in order to take down the central finite curve. It's later discovered that all of the Ricks we see in the show lock themselves out of infinite realities. Only the realities where he's the smartest man in the universe can be accessed. This is a fantastic reveal that shakes up the foundation of the show. We thought there were infinite realities, but no, it's only where Rick is all powerful, which fits Rick's character so much. We also find out they started to mass produce Mortys, which is fucked up. Rick and Morty escape, but evil Morty hijacked everyone's portal guns, killing anyone who attempts to go through. This forces Rick and Morty to attempt to escape through the bottom of the Citadel, where they find the mutated Mortys doing work. Then Morty uses a device to see Rick's backstory, which is the same as the season 3 opener, but we get more details. After Diane died, Rick went on a killing spree, killing any Rick to try and find the Rick who killed Diane, who we now know as Rick Prime. But he never finds him and ends up helping make the Citadel of Ricks. We also get to see Rick showing up at the Smith's house for the first time, which is so cool. Then after that,
Dead wife? Yes, now everyone can shut up about it.
Did I just catch you having fun?
I really like the song during this scene. Then we get a scene with evil Morty attempting to leave the central finite curve and asks our Morty to go with him, but he doesn't. Then evil Morty breaks through the central finite curve with an awesome rendition of the evil Morty theme. Then we see Rick and Morty escaping and working together. I know I did a lot of nagging this episode, but other than the fourth wall jokes, this episode was fantastic. Rick and Morty's character arc of learning to work together as equals, and Rick not thinking he's superior is cool. And it actually sticks around this time. From what I remember, Rick is way less of a dick from now on, which is awesome, and Morty and his relationship is way better. All the plot reveals are amazing. They expand the world and leave so many opportunities for the future of the series. I love that they talk about the central finite curve and close encounters of the Rick kind. It's a really cool detail. I wonder if they always knew what they wanted to do with it or not. This episode shows a new perspective of evil Morty's evilness. Is he really evil for wanting to break out of the central finite curve? No. But did he have to kill all those Rick and Mortys to do so? Probably not. I like how his character isn't just evil. He's been beaten down by all the selfish Ricks and just wants to be free from their torment. But I'm still going to call him Evil Morty because morally ambiguous Morty doesn't have the same ring to it. In terms of the ranking, this episode's going in the 9th spot, below the Rick Shank Redemption, but above Rick Potion number 9. And that's season 5. I was not expecting the season to have such a strong start, especially the decoy episode. After those episodes, I had hope for the season. Maybe I just didn't like the direction the show was going, and now that I have season 6 and 7, which are a return to form in my opinion, I can appreciate this season a lot more. Then the sperm episode happened and I lost hope. It didn't help that the next episode was also bad. Then there was a good episode. Then an awful episode. But the last 3 episodes were great. I'm surprised I'm saying this. I've come around on season 5. And in my opinion, it's better than season 4. This season took risks, which sometimes didn't work, but other times it succeeded substantially. There are problems. This season is probably the worst in terms of comedy. I hardly found myself laughing. In other videos, I had plenty of clips to show off that were funny, but here it's rare that a joke made me laugh. That's disappointing because that's the one thing that Rick and Morty has been fairly consistent with throughout its run. Sure, the quality of jokes have been going down, just like the season's quality, but it was still funny. This season makes up for the lack of good jokes with creativity. There are so many great concepts, like the decoys, the time dimension, Bird Person's brain escapades, and more. All really fun concepts. Even the episodes I didn't like had some good concepts, like hell demons who can't be hurt because they love pain. There are some really bad ideas, looking at you Sperm episode, but there's more good than bad. I do feel like this season's B-plots usually suck though. Last season's they were sometimes the highlights of the episode, like Jerry and the Cat and Floaty Jerry. But this season had only one good side plot with Rick and the Crows. The rest sucked. The animation and especially the colors are so pleasing to look at in the season. I enjoy how Jerry and Beth feel like they actually like each other, except for a couple moments. I can now watch them in a scene together and not want to bang my head against a wall. Summer has gotten worse in my opinion. She used to be one of my favorite characters, but now she's probably my second least favorite Smith. Jerry is once again climbing the ladder, becoming one of my favorite characters from the show. He's just so funny. Morty's basically the same, and so is Rick. Rick does get depowered quite a bit this season, which is great to see. It adds actual tension to episodes. I'm glad the writers realized that having an all-powerful god as the main character isn't that interesting. The only series I think does that concept well is One Punch Man. Beth has slowly been winning me over, which is nice to see. Now let's talk about the future of the series. When this season ended, I was hopefully optimistic for the future. I used to hate this season, But now that I have season 6 and 7, where the series quality has improved, I'm less salty about this season. Now I can see more of the good in it. Obviously it's not all good. I really hate the meta jokes here, especially the ones where Rick's like, I hate canon. Shut up, bitch. This sucks because the canon stuff this season is fantastic. I love where they take the story, except Naruto. Some of these episodes are really forgettable or bad. And of course, this season has the worst episode in the show. The sperm episode is definitely my top 5 least favorite episodes of any TV show I've ever seen. But there is also good, with some great episodes and moments. My opinion has once again changed, and I'm a bit worried about season 6. I think that season is great, so please don't let that opinion change. Now to answer the question, is Rick and Morty season 5 that bad? No, it wasn't. I'd say it was a fine season of television. Now, let's get into the final ranking. In the 51st spot is Rick Dependent Spray. In the 50th spot is Claw and Hoarder Special Rickdoms Morty. In the 49th spot is Pickle Rick. In the 48th spot is Vindicators 3 The Return of World Ender. In the 47th spot is Gotron Jerrysis Rick Vangelion. In the 46th spot is The ABCs of Beth. In the 45th spot is Rattlestar Rick Lactica. In the 44th spot is a Mortycan Rick Feedy. In the 43rd spot is Child Rick of Mort. In the 42nd spot is Raising Gazorpazorp. In the 41st spot is the Rick Churian Morty Date. In the 40th spot is One Crew Over the Crew Who's Morty. In the 39th spot is Pro Mortius. In the 38th spot is Interdimensional Cable 2 Tempting Fate. In the 37th spot is Anatomy Park. In the 36th spot is Edge of Tomorty Rick Die Rick Pete. In the 35th spot is a Rick Convenient Mort. In the 34th spot is Something Ricked This Way Comes. In the 33rd spot is Morty's Mind Blowers. In the 32nd spot is Autoerotic Assimilation. In the 31st spot is The Old Man in the Seat. In the 30th spot is Never Ricking Morty. In the 29th spot is Mort Dinner Rick Andre. In the 28th spot is Lawnmower Dog. In the 27th spot is The Whirly Durly Conspiracy. In the 26th spot is Rick and Morty's Thanksplosion Spectacular. In the 25th spot is Rick's D Minutes. In the 24th spot is Star Mort Return of the Jerry. In the 23rd spot is Forgetting Sarah Rick Mortshall. In the 22nd spot is The Pilot. In the 21st spot is Rick Mancing the Stone. In the 20th spot is Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. In the 19th spot is Ricksky Business. In the 18th spot is Rick Turnal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort. In the 17th spot is Look Who's Purging Now. In the 16th spot is Rest and Relaxation. In the 15th spot is Get Swifty. In the 14th spot is Morty Night Run. In the 13th spot is Mortyplicity. In the 12th spot is M. Night Shyam Aliens. In the 11th spot is the Vat of Acid episode. In the 10th spot is Rick Potion number 9. In the 9th spot is Rick Mirai Jack. In the 8th spot is the Rick Shank Redemption. In the 7th spot is the Ricks Must Be Crazy. In the 6th spot is Wedding Squanchers. In the 5th spot is A Rickle in Time. In the 4th spot is Close Rick Counters of the Rick Kind. In the 3rd spot is Me Seeks and Destroy. In the 2nd spot is Total Rickall. And of course, in the number 1 spot is the Ricklantics Mix-Up. Woo, another long-ass video done. Do you agree with my ranking? If not, why? Thank you all for watching, and if you got this far, please consider liking and subscribing. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.